Hey guys, today we're going to get back on the 351 LS. I'm going to take it apart from its mock-up stage and show you guys what else I had to do to the heads besides just hogging the head bolt holes out. And then I'm going to take the rest of the engine apart and see how it looks in there. So, check it out.
Let's take it real soon. You know we got what you need, baby. So take it, move along. I said we got what you need, honey. Come and groove along. Come on. Rolling on the highway.
Just want to say thanks for all the views and comments. You guys are absolutely correct. I needed a custom cam, but that being the hardest thing for me to do because I don't have a cam grinder, I called around and got that made first before I even started any of the other stuff because I didn't want to get this far and then be stuck without a camshaft. So that is done. The other thing is bore spacing. The LS is 4.4 inch bore spacing and the 351 is 4.380. And I'm hoping there's enough fudge factor in there that it's going to work fine. I'm going to actually bolt the heads on to the short block once the pistons are out of there and look through from the bottom and kind of see if the valves are all crammed against the cylinder wall or they're all pretty well centered in the bore. As you can see, quickly slammed all the pistons out of it. I mean, nothing bearing-wise looks unlike anything I expected. Oh, focus there. They've got some wear, but they're not totally shot. The crankshaft doesn't look like it's totally messed up. So, you know, basic wear from an old F-250. Okay. After taking the top and second ring off of piston number 1 and checking them for ring end gap, top ring was about 43 thousandths and the second ring here is about 41. So for reference, if you look at like a total seal ring chart, the formula for getting your ring gap when you buy your new rings, top ring for boosted on gasoline I believe is 5.5 thousandths per inch of bore diameter. This is a 4-inch bore, and 5.5 works out to like 22 thousandths of ring gap. So 43 covers that pretty well. And then on the second ring, it's supposed to be 3.5 thousandths per inch of bore diameter. So that works out to, let's see, calculator, 0.0035 times 4. That's 14 thousandths, and we're about 40. So I'm just going to assume that all of these other 7 pistons are worn about the same. So instead of me breaking a ring trying to get the rest of them off, I'm just going to assume they're all pretty well safely gapped at like 40-ish thousandths. So no need to do all that business. So I've got my budget dial bore gauge and my old 3 to 4 micrometer, and I got it set up to 4 inches because that is the bore of the 351. See if I can do this one-handed here. Okay, this is the thrust direction, if we can see on the old gauge here. So my gauge is intense, and it's only about 1.5 large there. Pull it out some. You know, I thought it would be worse. I'll do it this way so the weight's not on it. Get that in there. We'll come over here. See, right around the thou in that direction. Even at the tippy top, closer to 2 thou. Okay. But the way that ring gap's reading, I thought it was going to be way off. And it's not to say the precision of my, you know, sweet bore gauge isn't great. I mean, it's no Sun-in unit, but it should be fairly close. So, one of the other things I've got to deal with is this hole I've started hacking on here, and this one down here I've started hacking on. These were oil return holes from the head down back into the crankcase of the block. Well, on the LS cylinder head, this is actually kind of underneath a coolant passage. Like, this port on the head comes over about here. So I welded up the passage on the head that's out in this area, but I didn't want to weld up that other one or weld it halfway, so I figured I could just easily take a pipe tap, sink it into the block, and get the head of the plug underneath the deck surface on both of these per side. One of the only other things I'm going to remotely worry about is there's some scoring in cylinder number 2 here, and you can see the corresponding piston. It's got some unhappy marks on it, but I think I've got a good old-fashioned dingle ball hone around here somewhere, and I'll just kind of polish that mess up a little bit and get ready to slam them back in the fabulous holes they came from. And now that I've got these plugs haphazardly hogged into the deck surface, I'll be sure to get some sealer on them and then send them home. That will block off that oil drain, and in theory there will be no coolant or oil leaks or coolant and oil swapping places inside the crankcase. I'll do a close-up on the head, but basically it's going to come out, drain down the valve springs, and then the LS heads have a basically just a shelf that goes off, and it should just run over the edge of this and back down into the valley. So let's look at the heads a little bit. So if we look at the head here with the Ford gasket on it, basically what I did was manually die grind in with like the tools you saw me using on the block to get the dowel pins from the Ford block to fit in here, the ones that were just sticking out. So I got the head to sit on there, and then once these were lined up good, I put on the bench and I clamped a gasket down. It actually wasn't this one, I used a standard gasket so the multi-layer stuff wasn't flopping around. Clamped it to the head and literally just scribed around the inside of each head bolt hole and marked it. And then when I got it on the mill, just kind of manually lined each one up and plowed down through from the top through the top surface with the 9/16 end mill on the Bridgeport. The next problem was there is a large coolant passage right here on LS heads, and clearly that was mostly outside the gasket. I welded up those passages because I noticed it was outside the head gasket here and kind of like under this hole. So, welded it up, decked it off, and then my plan is to knock out a frost plug here and weld a 12AN coolant outlet fitting. What we just worked on is right here. So head bolt hole. This is nothing. This is up on the block. There's nobody home there. But this is coolant on the cylinder head. And that is this oil return. So I didn't want coolant from the cylinder head pouring down into the block, into the timing area, and then also in the just back into the crankcase from there. So that is the only other hole. So head bolt, this is the oil drain on the Ford, would have blown coolant down into the block, as would have this one here. This top one is like up in here for some reason. Let's just take a disc. Put it on here. One-handed stuff is good. All right. So yeah, that hole, nobody home, just. But that one right there, oil drain. So I believe, as hacked as it is, we should be able to keep the fluids in the right compartments. All right, I've got a head on there. I'm going to try to stick this camera kind of in the bore. Yeah, it's a little close on the intake side, but you know. I'm not sure you can see any of this. How's that? Let me turn this out of the way. That one. You know, I think we're going to be okay. Looks pretty good to me. All right, I think that covers it for this part 2 video. I'm waiting for some parts to arrive, and then the next video I will put the short block back together. I think I can commit to putting the heads on, and hopefully my push rod length checking tool will be here, and we'll work on some push rod length and preload stuff, and see about getting that sweet, sweet custom cam in there. So, see you guys next time.